Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of the Marketing Guides for Small Businesses podcast. We've been technically challenged getting this launched this morning um, and actually have had a power surge that has kept one of our esteemed panelists from joining us. So hopefully, Paul will be able to join us soon. Anyway, we had a lot of fun a couple of weeks ago, kind of venting about some marketing things that have been bugging us. And so we had such a laundry list, we only got through about a third of it. So we decided to do this again. So we are going to go to part two of this today. And I'm going to start with you, Ian, first of all. So, how important is it for a business to have an automated booking calendar?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really important if you actually book appointments. So, so I would say for any business, like if you don't book appointments, it's probably not as important, right? It makes sense. But I think having an automated booking calendar makes a world of difference as long as it's smart, meaning it actually connects with your schedule. You can create some criteria in the back end that allows it to protect you and your team, right? Because you can do team calendar appointment booking as well, kind of a queuing structure. But yeah, it's huge because first of all, it creates a really nice customer experience, right? There or a prospect experience where they're on your website or they've gotten an email from you, whatever method they find out about this, but usually it's on your website. They click on the schedule or book a call or come in for an appointment, and it's smart enough to be able to actually look at your real calendar or your team's real calendar, the group calendar, and be able to determine where the gaps are, and people can book an appointment for themselves. And as I said, you can build into good systems, good appointment booking systems allow you to put in buffer between meetings. So if you want to make sure that there's half an hour or 10 minutes to do note taking from your last meeting before your next meeting, right? There's lots of things you can do to make it work that way. You can say, hey, for this type of meeting, and you can set up all types of different meetings. So, for me, I have a discovery call meeting, which is a shorter meeting. And I don't need as much buffer between those, but I do like 2 days between when they want to book, like from today to when they can first book it. So it gives me time to prepare after they book the appointment. So it creates all sorts of customer user good feelings because the power is with them. They get to book it at a time and date that works best for them. It increases tons of efficiencies for you as a business because the traditional way is somebody will pop you an email or they'll pick up the phone and call, and of
Right.
course that's time away from other valuable things you could be doing, like being on a discovery call with someone or doing a strategy session or whatever your business is. Even if you're a roofer and it's your sales team that needs to go out and actually inspect the property in order to provide an on-site quote or something like that.
Yeah.
I know, Paul, one of the questions that follows this was going to be about no-shows, but this type of system decreases no-shows a lot. I found that because it's automated, it sends out reminders. You can send out email reminders, text reminders. It just makes people like they've committed to it, and this is just a way of keeping them, on track in order to be there.
Right.
Um, Increased availability. So an automated system can help increase availability by allowing the customers to book the appointments outside of normal business hours. So if that's something you and your team do, because for my business I have I call them PM, but just like after hours appointments for the West Coast people that I serve. So you can do that kind of stuff. Better data insights. It allows you to actually look at how appointments are being set up, when are the peak times that people are doing that, and if you need to staff up or make adjustments to your business, you can do that. And then omni-channel automation. So this part I get really excited about because, and I know you do too, Ken. I can tell by the
Right.
smile on your face, but
Right.
it's so cool because there's smart systems out there, and I know you and I both use the same system, really, and that's an omni-channel CRM marketing automation system. That when somebody books an appointment, you can do all sorts of things. You can put them into a workflow where, hey, they've shown interest in this particular product or service, so they're going to get these nurture emails between when they
Yeah.
book the appointment and when they have the appointment, right? So there's so much you can do. Create a new contact in the CRM, all that kind of stuff. So all of those things together, it's like a no-brainer to me. Like, every business, if you book appointments, you absolutely should have an automated booking system, or you're just, you're not taking advantage of the things that could save you time, energy, and money, and make the experience better for your prospects and customers.
Yeah, and I think also, I don't know about, what you've seen, but from what we've seen working with our customers and clients is that people want to do this,
Yeah.
and if they don't have the option, they may go to somebody else, especially after COVID. I mean, it just became so much more of a driver for people to just go online and do this. And I look, I know logistically, some businesses it's really tough.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, we've got a client in the San Francisco Bay Area, and they'd love to have an automated booking calendar, but you can't, they've only got a couple of people who can go to these initial estimates.
Yeah.
And so, you've got a route plan, otherwise all your person is going to be doing is driving from one appointment to the next. Even if you do set up buffers like you talked about, it may still not be very economical because they may only be able to get 2 meetings in a day because of the drive time and traffic.
Yeah.
So sure, there are challenges, but I would encourage you, everybody on this call or watching this episode, try to figure it out because it can be a big difference maker for you. And like you said, the automation follow-ups is even more of a game changer.
Yeah. If I can just add a couple more things, Ken, like
Yeah.
you raised some really good points there. One, I should just say, like, at its base minimum, everybody can use Calendly, right? Calendly is free to some level, paid if you want more bells and whistles. But that's kind of the basic of basics. There is a little bit of automation in Calendly now that you can use, but it's not very robust.
Yeah.
And then there's all these other systems. A lot of times CRM systems, if you're in a specific field, some of them have this, right? Like dental practice management software is now getting smarter with this kind of stuff where it helps you do that. Service-based businesses often have this kind of stuff built in, or there are options like that. The one thing I would say, exactly what you were talking about with the route planning, is where there's sophisticated methods of resolving that problem where you almost do need a software or a CRM system that understands where your service areas are and can make that all work. And there are some smart systems like that. They cost money, obviously, and they take time to set up. But there's also really easy ways to do that I've seen clients do, where basically they say, okay, for this type of appointment, being a sales appointment where we are a window and door installer, and we need to go out and we need to measure the house, and we need to and upsell and cross sell and do all that kind of stuff with the prospective customer. But because there's a host of areas that they can go to, what they have found works again, this is super simple, guys, but they actually make only certain days available for certain areas, so that they just send their, a couple sales guys out to one region on a Monday. They send them out to a different region on a Tuesday. And of course, if there's, some gaps and stuff like that, they deal with that. But that's a really kind of dumbed down, easy way to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could work well as long as you don't have like an emergency service that you have to deliver,
Yep.
So you have to factor that in. I mean, I guess, what bugs me about this is that I'm still absolutely stunned at how few businesses offer an automated booking calendar and
Yeah.
even just want to trade emails or phone calls back and forth to get an appointment set up. And it's like, it just blows me away. I mean, even if you can, like, even if you're worried about and you have the route differential that you
Yeah.
have to worry about, at least set up one appointment a day. And if you
Yeah.
book an appointment for that morning, or maybe it's morning and one in the afternoon, whatever you can do, if you book it, it's not going to be available for anybody else to book anyway. So
Yeah.
at least you're giving people an option to make a selection. You know, I'm a big fan of don't put any roadblocks in the way of people wanting to take action.
Yeah. Well,
So
and that experience that you talked about, the emailing back and forth, we've
yeah,
all done it. That's probably the worst experience that anybody can have because it's so drawn out that to find a mutually agreeable time, it probably takes like 7 to 10 emails
right.
because you're like, "Hey, what's your availability? Oh, what's your availability?" And you're going back and forth and, pick up the phone, do it quick, or put
Yeah.
in a system, or both, right?
And
But
it
get
could
the
go
system.
on over a course of several days, you
Yeah,
know, and by that
that's
time
right.
your calendar may already be booked.
Yeah.
So then you have to start all over again. The
Yeah.
other thing too, you know, I think a lot of people don't really realize is you can you don't have to just let people go randomly book on your calendar. You can
That's right.
screen and qualify people. You can even take payment before they can complete the booking if that
Yeah.
makes sense, you know, and if you find that you're getting a lot of bogus, you know, look, an appointment is worth money. You know, for most businesses, when somebody books that appointment slot, you've lost the opportunity to have anybody else come in and be your customer during that time frame. So you got to get them to show up, but you don't
Yeah.
want them to just erroneously book either if they're just looky loos.
Yeah.
So you know, so that's where, you know, if you see that's happening, just put some qualification questions in there. You know, you're going to get fewer booked appointments, but you're going to get probably better quality appointments. And you just have to you have to experiment and play around with stuff like that. But the key
Yeah.
thing is, I think you just you have to embrace this. I mean, you know, we're in 2023. This is the expectation of overwhelming majority of people who are reaching out trying to contact businesses these days.
Yeah. And I like your point too, Ken, about the confirmation. I'm actually of the personal ilk or strategy that I think you should always have a system set up where a person picks up the phone and confirms with that customer, ideally right when they book it, because that they're available because they just booked an appointment with you, and speed of service is really critical because it sets the tone for how you are going to serve them in the future by how quickly you respond. We've
Yeah.
talked about that in another podcast, but I think having that personal interaction also bridges the gap because you're taking it from an electronic relationship to a person-to-person relationship over the phone, which will then translate into a person-to-person relationship in person. But yeah, you don't want to be wasting time chasing bogus appointments. So yeah, you probably want to put some pre-qualifiers in a very easy form in that process, which most of these systems have now.
Yeah.
And then I always think you should do a follow-up confirmation, whether it's a text or whether it's on the phone.
And you mentioned omni-channel. I mean, if you're using a good system, it can automatically prompt and
Yeah,
call your appointment confirmer,
yeah,
whoever that might be in your business, and say, "Hey, this person just booked an appointment." You can press any key to continue to contact the person just to thank them and see if there's anything else you need to know before their appointment.
yeah,
You know, and now you've automated the process, so it's going to be institutionalized unless
yeah.
people start to ignore those phone calls.
That's right. Yeah, and you can do some further qualification too if you feel the need as a business.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
So, okay. All right, awesome. So, I had a question for Paul that I'm gonna put out there and I'll kind of
sure.
get started, but this it comes down to, you know, keyword ranking metrics and you know, what's valuable from a reporting perspective. Uh, you know, I find so many people get distracted by the shiny object of a keyword, you
Mhm.
know, and it's like, oh, I'm ranking number one for this keyword phrase. And first of all, it may not even be a relevant keyword phrase to their business, or it may not be a relevant keyword phrase because it just isn't important because it's like got zero traffic.
Yeah.
So sure, you can rank for it, but is it
Mhm.
really bringing you any traffic to your website?
Yeah.
So I definitely think there are some misleading ones. The ones that I think are helpful when you're talking about keyword rankings. I always like to look at visibility. What is the total
Mhm.
visibility of all of the keywords and all of the efforts, and all of the searches that people are doing for the range of terms, and how are you ranking for that? I think it's much better to look at your overall visibility than it is an individual keyword phrase here or there. That's not to say you never want to do it. I mean, there are some keyword phrases that are just so critical and so golden. Sure, you need to take advantage of it and look at that and monitor for that. But I think overall visibility is really one that I like to really look at. The other is, you can, if you can gain any insights into what's working well for your competition, and what phrases your competition are are ranking for, and again, see if those are phrases that you really should be ranking for, and then it gives you. I mean, we've got some great tools. I know you've got some great tools as well, Ian, where we can actually use competitor analysis, which I think we talked about a little bit last week, and actually come up with content suggestions to be able to overcome a
Mhm.
keyword gap that we may be facing against a particular competitor. So,
Yeah.
so I love that. I think those are great things to do. I think a lot of people, they get down in the micro level, and they look in it. It's like, oh my God, I'm ranking for this keyword phrase. I'm number 10 now, and last week I was number 5. And
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, there's so much volatility. If you're worried about, from day to day rankings, I think you're gonna be so distracted and so um, off the mark that it's not valuable. You want to look at keyword trends. You want to look at, are you improving and sustaining your keyword level that you want to rank for over time, instead of being distracted by this day-to-day fluctuation or week-to-week fluctuation. It's going to happen. You take actions on the long term. You can't, if you take actions on the short term, you're going to drive yourself nuts, and you might even wind up hurting yourself. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
The one thing I would add to that too, Ken, is because I agree with you. Like for the business owner or the marketing person in the business who the agency or whatever is talking to, or maybe they're doing their own SEO work, I would say the visibility report is your kind of dashboard, your gauge of how is everything working? Is everything trending in the right way? Just like you said, but if you're managing your SEO, you have to know how your actual keywords are ranking, because the visibility is like an aggregate report. But as an example, we've had it where competition in an area has grown for a dentist that we serve. Um, their aggregate visibility is astronomically higher than any competitor in their area. But when we start to drill down, because this is what we and you do, right, is we're looking at, well, how can we increase the total visibility, this aggregate report? And the only way you can do that is through the individual targeting of topics and keywords.
right.
So we might notice there being some slippage on the top most important keyword, which might be dentist near me or something like that, right? And so that is an immediate red flag, like, whoa, we need to look into this and see which competitor is doing something, and was there something causing this, and how can we right the ship for that key phrase.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to give the impression to a business owner that they only have to look at the high level reports. They might, but they have to have a trusted partner or staff member in charge of this in order to make sure that you aren't losing ground, because you will lose ground on the minutia, the keyword phrases and the topics, if you're not paying attention to them.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a great point. Um, I think a
It's almost
couple.
like roles and responsibilities, like your your metrics change depending on your role and responsibility in the ecosystem of SEO, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
the owner, you only need to know it's working well so that you can make decisions at that level. Like, yes, keep paying my agency or and they're doing a good job, but
Right.
your SEO worker needs to understand and be able to have visibility to the success and failure at that level as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think a couple of other things is, people assumes everything's good just because they rank well in one particular search engine, and they're not looking across. I mean, look, there's no doubt Google owns, such a large segment of search. But again, if you go back and you think about who is your ideal client and the nature of the products and services that you offer, Google it's probably still going to be the dominant one, but it may not be the massively dominant one that it is for for many businesses or industries. As an example, Yelp is a specific website where you can actually work on getting your site to improve in search, for people who are using Yelp. So if you've got clients, or your ideal customers are likely users of Yelp, it's worth putting some time and effort to help you, make sure and that may be something you need to do within your Yelp profile, and maybe not a whole lot on your website. But the other thing is, I mean, you're still going to be found driven around keyword searches, and Bing and Yahoo, are still important. So if you've got a group of customers that are hardcore dedicated, and in some cases maybe they're even strongly encouraged to use Bing as their search engine, um, you got to pay attention to that. So just because you're ranking well on Google doesn't mean you're ranking well everywhere else.
Yeah.
So
And listeners should remember too, one of the biggest misleading things that still exists today that has existed since Google, well, not quite almost began, but for a long time now, is especially I see this in really small business owners, like when I'm networking with people and that kind of stuff, where they Google, like say they're a landscaper and they Google landscaping and they're like, look, I'm number one. And
right,
I'm like, oh, but that's your profile in Google Maps.
right,
It knows your location. You're in your office right now, and
right.
you're not in an incognito
Yeah, you're
window,
you're logged into your account.
right? Which means Google knows that you like this business,
Right.
and so it's going to serve it up at the top. So,
Yeah.
there's simple things that even if a business were to just go into an incognito window, that would help tremendously in at least going, oh, okay, we're not number one.
Yeah.
Because I still hear people saying that, and you hate to kind of burst their bubble, but
Yeah.
it's usually not true if that's the level of sophistication that
True.
they have at the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. So, let's talk about. I mean, I think a lot of businesses, and I'm sure I'm guilty of this as much as anybody, leaves a lot on the table. They leave a lot of opportunity on the table. Maybe it's because you don't want to come across as pushy or aggressive, uh, but anyway, I think we still need to talk about it, and that is, what are some easy ways for businesses to either increase the value or their profitability of their sale?
Yeah. I mean, I would start by, and I learned this in the corporate world when, the Fortune 500 company I was in, when the CFO would come back and say, "Hey, we're increasing our prices to all customers by 1%, which will have almost no effect on them whatsoever. Like it won't hurt, but for our business, it will help us make $2 million more this year." And you're like, a 1%, like the math is boggling when you get to that scale, but
Yeah.
the concept is still absolutely true for a business. Like if you look to optimize your pricing, especially in a market like we're in right now, where our costs as a business serving our customers, everything is increased in price, right?
Yeah.
Everybody understands that. Nobody likes prices increasing, but there is an understanding that every year there's a cost of, not cost of living, but inflationary price increases, and that should be built into our contracts. Which I'm horrible, like I'm guilty of not doing that over the years, but I'm getting smarter with that, right? Where we need to make sure that we're optimizing our pricing. using data, using analytics, using what is the true value of our service to our clients, right? And of course, there's different industries have different competitive pressures, but there's always ways to look at your pricing. Um, and from a profitability, I mean, the two things that you are always the big levers are pricing and the costs associated with serving the customer, right? So those are the two big levers. But then other levers you have are things like upselling, and sometimes upselling uh, is overlooked because some people, just like you said, think it feels a little bit pushy. But the truth is, if you're a trusted provider of a service and the customer or the client or the patient continues to come to you, they view you as the best option to serve them. And it won't come across as if you do it well. I mean, you can always do it poorly,
Right.
but if you do it well and respectfully and are offering them a choice, then upselling, upgrading, like those kind of things are just very easy ways to profit. And the one that kind of goes hand in hand with upselling is cross selling, right? So if somebody's asking you for, you know, they're coming to you for eaves troughs to get, or gutters, whatever area you're in, gutters or eaves troughs, and you have the option to upsell them on gutter guards, right, to protect it from getting leaves stuck in it. And then you have the opportunity to cross sell and say, while we're doing this work, we can also do your siding, your soffits and fascia, potentially if you do roofing as well, right? Like there's a host of other things that you can
Right.
include in there. Or we can power spray your siding to make it nicer, right? For a very nominal fee. You can bundle products and service. I mean, everybody's used to that now, and we expect to get greater value with the more we bundle, just like we do with telecom services. Yeah. What else do you have, Ken?
Well, I think a lot of people probably think, well, now wait a minute, bundling usually means that I put a bunch of stuff together and I wind up discounting stuff. Sure, on the surface, but at the same time, if you can make it so that people buy more at the time that they're already buying from you again, you're eliminating one of the sales cycles that you have to pay for anyway. So even if you wind up discounting a little bit to create a bundle to get people to buy more, or even an upsell, you are actually increasing your profitability if you're doing it right. It's not sure, there may be a discount that comes into play, but you're still increasing your overall profitability because you're reducing your cost of sale considerably.
Yeah.
Um, you have to be careful with it because you can also screw yourself. I think you know Donald Miller's got a fantastic book coming out. I had a chance to read a preview copy this weekend. It's called How to Grow Your Small Business, and in that book, there's a chapter on products. And I would encourage everybody to go through and look at all of the things that you sell, associate how much profit do you have in them, how much does it take for you to deliver those. Do you expose yourself to unnecessary risk in terms of customer dissatisfaction by delivering some of these things, or add value by increasing customer satisfaction. But look at everything that you've got, because I guarantee you've got some real losers and you need to cut them out,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't be spending your money marketing those things.
We all get
um,
emotionally attached to some of our services and products, right?
Absolutely. I mean, Ian, you and I were talking about, one of the things that I'm seriously thinking about cutting because I see the profit being sucked out of it.
Hmm.
And it's a critically important thing, but it's like, it's become a high risk, um, big customer dissatisfier potentially.
Hmm.
And the profits being sucked out of it because of third party entities that we can't control. So maybe it's time to move on and cut that out and focus on the things that we know are profitable, that are best for us. Um, I really think it's important for every business to go through that process, um, at least once a year, maybe even quarterly if you can have some kind of a quarterly review. And as you're getting ready to build and launch new products, I say you should have a form that you fill, like what you're going to see in this book, or something similar, um, to where you go through a process and you challenge yourself: is this really going to be a good, profitable product, and should I make the investment to to sell this, because will it return money back into my business the way I expect it to?
Right.
Again, it's like, you've known me for a long time, Ian. I mean, I love to build stuff. I love to play. I love to buy tools. Um, and some of that is, I think, a necessary thing I need to do for my job. But
Sure.
I guarantee you, I'm going through a process right now of culling out some of the services and solutions that we offer, just because they're not profitable.
Right. Well,
And
and it's like the beauty of that too, Ken, is that uh we all uh in our hearts we feel loss, right? We feel like, oh, we're going to lose. But what we forget about, and I think we've all been through this, where we lose an important client that was a real pain in the butt, but they were important from a profitability standpoint. But what it does is it frees up your focus, right? You can now focus. So if you jettison the things that aren't as profitable, it allows you to serve your clients even better in the ones that are profitable. And ultimately, if the thing I hear, nobody voices this, but I hear it all the time by the way business owners talk, is that if you do not create a profitable and sustainable financial business, financially sustainable business, by providing the service or product at the price level that you need to do to flourish, you will not be serving clients for very long, and you're doing a disservice to the world. Because ultimately, the if you're really good and you believe you're really good, your business is really good at what it does, the
yeah,
world and the customers need to hear that, right? And to do
right.
that, you need to be sustainable for a
Yeah.
long period of time.
Yeah. My other thought, um, well, a couple thoughts. One is just in terms of making sure that you can actually get somebody to make the purchase. Maybe you need to offer financing or a payment plan.
Yeah.
And you can charge a little bit more. So you may be a little bit exposed, but you may actually wind up making a little bit more money if you, and you're going to get more sales because you're going to give people a little bit more flexibility to pay. But the other
Yeah.
thing too is, I think if you're clear and you're very clear about the problem that you solve and how you solve it for a client, you can charge more, because your
Yeah.
perceived value has gone through the roof. Because there are so many websites that are not clear, that don't make any sense, where people have no idea, what it is they're really getting, or how somebody's going to operate. And if you're clear and you answer the problem that somebody has, they're gonna make a faster buying decision, and they're probably not gonna price shop nearly as much.
Yeah. And can I share a recent
Sure.
circumstance that we had in my family where we have a family member who it's time for them to go into like senior living type residence. And what was interesting in is during that sales process, you had to put down a deposit if you wanted one of the rooms that was available. But bonusing is a very interesting
Hmm.
method. Rather than providing a discount, you provide something extra to help incentivize the decision making.
Right.
So in this case, the particular place said, hey, we will pay for $1,000 in moving costs in order to help not just move you, but prepare the move, like help you select and plan your room and stuff like that. And I just thought that was so smart, because if you think in a long-term financial way, they're gaining essentially a resident for years and years by putting up, yes, it might not even cost them $1,000, because maybe they have a break because of the number of times they do this with a particular mover.
Right.
But I just thought it was so smart, right?
Yeah.
Making it
Yeah.
easy and really helping the consumer that way. But there's
Well,
lots of ways we can do that.
the other great thing about that is, it doesn't devalue your the solution you already have.
That's right. Yeah.
You
Which a
know, I mean,
discount does.
a discount does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, look, if you're going to advertise, I think you have to think about running offers and discounts.
Sure.
But you don't always have to do it as a discount. Sometimes you just need to remind people, hey, we've got this. Like today, it wasn't an ad, but it was on Facebook. I see that my favorite barbecue place has the most amazing corned beef and Reuben's on the planet that
You're making me hungry, Ken.
they only do in March. So guess where I'm going for lunch?
Now I'm really hungry.
Yeah. So, yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some marketing automation ideas, because again,
Sure.
this is a place where there are so many solutions that are out there that can add massive value. They can reduce operational costs. They can increase customer experience. And these solutions don't break the bank. And I'm just
Mhm.
amazed that small businesses aren't looking for way, especially when they're so challenged to be able to find labor to do a lot of the jobs that they need. Automation can wind up being a little bit depersonalizing, but as you talked about, there are ways to incorporate the personal elements, and actually
Mhm.
automation can help maybe even force that to make sure that that it happens. So I wanted to talk to you about what do you think some of the best marketing automation ideas are for small businesses?
Yeah, I mean, just the example of email automation to me is it's such a mature system and tool set that you can now use. Like email marketing automation has been around for man, like 15 years, probably even before that. But it really, especially accessible email marketing automation has really, in the last 7-10 years has really become available at costs that people can leverage.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can use that to upsell, cross sell, educate, right? I think education is often overlooked, but
Mhm.
we all know, or we all should know, that an educated buyer is usually a higher quality and better buyer, right? So
Right.
we can use email automation to educate prospective customers, but also existing customers, clients, and patients. We can offer special deals. Like, say we have a new product or service, and we want to give it a real bump, offering a special deal, and staying in touch with customers can be really valuable. I'm
Yeah.
just going to mute that.
All right. So while Ian goes and does that, I'll talk about like social media automation. A lot of people may not really think about this, but you can actually create and schedule, a large portion of your social media posting content, um, you know, using fantastic automation tools that can, post unique content to certain platforms. It can post the same content to multiple platforms. You have a lot of different things that you can do. But the great thing about this is, I mean, you always have to be respectful of what's happening in the world. You don't want to just set it and 100% forget it, because if there's a catastrophic event that happens and you've got posts that are going out that could be perceived as being insensitive, obviously you have to be paying attention to that. But I find that a lot of businesses, it's easy to just, it's like, okay, I can dedicate a couple hours or even an hour first thing Monday morning, build out my social media posts for the week. I can drive traffic back to a video that I did last week, or I can, automate. And we use tools. I know you use the same tool we do, Ian, and we've
Yeah.
actually had the founder of the company on this podcast, where it takes a blog and it builds out a 12-month social media calendar, that you can keep driving traffic back to that blog post over a period of time, as long as it's evergreen kind of content where it makes sense to do that over that time frame. So social media automation, I think, is a really easy win.
Yes.
So
Yeah. The one thing I was going to say about that too is that if you automate your social media, it allows you to do. I haven't come up with a good term for this, Ken, so I'm going to have to ask Chat GPT or ask you.
okay,
But I often call it like the layering, the stratas, the
right,
layer cake approach, where
yeah,
like there's so much automated social media that you can do, related to like the services and products that don't change or they don't change very often, right? So,
Right.
but you should be continually communicating with your existing clients about that kind of stuff. I'm always amazed how we as business owners think everybody knows as much about our products and service offering as we do, and that's ridiculous. Like, I'm always amazed how um, even when I'm doing networking with people, and I've known these people for years, and I've shared with them and presented to them about what we do and all of the, and then they're introducing me to someone, and they're like, oh, he does this, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that's like
Right.
this tiny little piece of what we do. We do way more than that, but
Yeah.
that's your perception. You've pigeonholed me into that particular thing because that's your memory hook. But the same is true for any business. And
Yeah.
along those lines, if you can so create a layer of strategic posting, but then start to add on some of the ad hoc natural posting,
Mhm.
like having your staff post, hey, this is us doing a great staff event, and the human connection aspect of it can
Yeah.
add a richness to it that will create greater engagement and greater reach as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I really kind of see social media in three tiers. It's that basic blocking and tackling where you just need to make sure you're staying visible and keeping people aware of what it is that you do, the problems that you solve,
Yeah.
anything that is, interesting that may be happening in your business. But then, in order to get the engagement and really get a lot of sharing and commenting and stuff like that, you've got to add that second layer, which is typically, behind the scenes, and that's stuff that typically has to be done within the business. It's really hard to do that, outside of the business.
Mhm.
There are some things that you can do, and you can still use automation to do some of those things. And then the final thing that I always look at is really that growth strategy. There are a whole series of posts that you might want to do intentionally, to drive growth. And so, they all require different levels of effort and, different levels of involvement from, team members and whatnot. I
Yeah.
think, when you were talking about email, one of the things that I always pops into my mind too is, segmentation.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about segmentation when it comes to emails or even messaging in general, and
Yeah.
how you,
And
how you use automation to help with that?
sure. Yeah. And just to be clear, so people understand what segmentation is, I mean, it's kind of it's semi obvious in the name, but it's really about taking your total customer list or contact list and segmenting it, like breaking it down like a pie, right? Cutting it into different pie pieces. So you might have segments that are prospects, segments that are existing customers, segments that are, under existing customers. This is usually how I see it, is you have a whole host of subsegments, and you might even have that in your prospect list as well, right? You might have prospects who are interested in, just for an example from our businesses, but in SEO, right?
Mm.
They're showing interest in SEO, and so we should be communicating to them about SEO rather than about Google Ads or something like that.
Yeah.
But the power of segmenting your list it allows you to communicate where that person is out at about the topic that they're most interested in the way they're most interested to hear it. So automation tools allow you to then take those tags, those segments, and set up some automated sequences where you can drip out emails, or you can drip out text messaging, or you drip out automated call recordings, or whatever it is you could be doing,
Right.
you should be doing. Another form, this is not really, I wouldn't classify this under automation, but it kind of is retargeted advertising is a form of segmentation where you can create different ads that will follow people around, for that align to the interests that they've shown.
Right.
And again, if you do that well, it can pre-segment them before they even get into your list, so that you have more information about those people and can again speak to them where they're at, because that's going to raise the opportunity level for sure for you.
Yeah, and I mean, and you can automate that so that you eliminate some of the banner blindness that might happen, because
Right.
you can cycle through like 3 or 4 different types of ads. You can have an offer, you can have a brand awareness ad, you can have a, a review or a testimonial kind of an ad, as all remarketing, so they're all, but you can automate the delivery of this, the schedule of the delivery of those different types of ads to keep it fresh. So that, because I mean, if people see the same ad over and over and over again, they're going to start to ignore it.
Yeah.
And so you need to do things like that, and you can certainly do automation there. A couple of other things that come into my mind. I mean, lead nurturing is the
Hmm.
classic
Yeah.
automation. I mean, if somebody downloads an ebook, that they have a particular interest because they told you, because they wanted to get that ebook. So you have an email series. Now you put them into a segmentation, so that after you maybe run through this lead nurture series, now you can continue to send information to them, and through whatever channels you want to, um, not as as an aggressive a schedule as maybe you are in a lead nurture, but so you can certainly take advantage of that. And I think abandoned carts, is
Mm.
also a great thing, because if you sell something online and people put it in their cart and then they don't complete the purchase, send them a text or an email and say, hey, I think you left something behind. Do you want to go back and take another look? And those are a lot of great things that you can
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, one thing just occurred to me too, Ken, is I had a recent experience where I was looking for a new printer. I was between a bunch of different vendors. One was Staples, one was Best Buy, some other one, Amazon, of course, but some other ones. And what I found interesting is that because I had put them in my cart just so I didn't have to, oh, what was that printer that I wanted?
Right.
That both of those places, Staples and Best Buy, the next day said, "Hey, you left something in your cart. Your cart's going to be deleted in 1 day or whatever. So if you still want it, come back."
Yeah.
But what's interesting is we as small business owners often think that, hey, it's the big guys that have these tools at that they're able to use, and I actually think there's a disadvantage. Like I think the pendulum has swung more in favor of small businesses because we're nimble. The tools have progressed exceedingly far. They are feasible from a financial standpoint for small businesses now. That to institute a change like that, an improvement, is actually easier for a small business now than for a large business, right? Like
Yeah.
Best Buy and Staples should have had that years ago, but they didn't, right? Because
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
costly because of their scale.
Yeah, absolutely. Another automation that I think can work really great is to send a review request.
Oh
So,
yeah,
like, if you collect payment, and you can trigger the request to go after when you collect that payment, and you only collect payment at the point where somebody has successfully received your service,
yeah.
then you can send an automated message or series of messages, email and or SMS, asking people to go write a review. And so, automating things like that are really great. So,
Yeah, even reporting, right? Like we
oh
haven't really
yeah,
talked about that, but
true.
most tools now, whether it's a dashboard the agency can set up for you or whether it's a regular report, like all of that stuff can be automated. Same is true for most businesses, right? You can automate reports for clients, once you do an audit or an assessment of some kind. So,
Yeah,
start utilizing those things.
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, once again, we didn't get through very many topics.
But it's good. Hopefully, this came across as a very natural discussion because it was. So,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
absolutely. I mean, we've got a whole host of things, folks. So, this will be a fairly regular occurring series, I'm sure. Anyway, thanks to everybody for joining us. Thanks for your patience if you got distracted by our initial little hiccups. Paul, we missed you. Hope you get your power soon. And Ian, do you want to take us away?
sure. So, don't forget to keep calm and mark it on.
All right. See you next week.